The 2021 MLB season is here, and although the seats may not be full, your bankroll has the chance to be. Greg Hoops Peterson has you covered for every game, every day this season, along with comprehensive analysis and angles for getting to the window while celebrating the walk-off winners and blown saves of what will be a wild season. Now it is time for the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson.
A warm and friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Got a great podcast for you. In the second segment, Matt Peralta Pushing the Odds, along with the Daily Juice Podcast, a podcast that you're able to find wherever you get this fine podcast. Going to be joining me. We're going to be taking a look at some of the games for today. Also going to be taking a look at the American League playoff standings as well. Do the Boston Red Sox have themselves a shot to be able to get into it? We're going to be asking that to Matt in the second segment. Then in the final segment, going to give you guys a side total on every game on the betting board for this Monday, and a little something like call, touch them all. First things first, always love to be able to answer your Twitter questions on this podcast. You got one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, the mean does not matter, so as per usual, send these into the timeline. Other ways, via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast into that 5-star review. Did not wind up getting in any Twitter questions today, but we had a great day of baseball on Sunday, so let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
In Sunday Night Baseball, the Oakland A's were able to get another win after they had entered into the weekend with 6 straight losses. They now have won 2 straight as they take down the Yankees by a count of 3-1. Good news for the Yankees is that they still have went 13-2 in their last 15 games despite this loss. They were able to get a solid start out of Jordan Montgomery. 6 innings, he gives up 1 unearned run as Gio Urshela wound up having a pair of errors out there in the field, including a ball that should have been a tailor-made double play. From there, Jonathan Loáisiga gives you a scoreless inning, and Chad Green winds up giving up 2 runs, including a home run to Tony Kemp, his 5th home run of the season. That wound up being the difference as Paul Blackburn had himself in a little bit of danger, but he was able to wiggle his way out of it. 5 scoreless innings in his start. Yasmero Petit de Olis Carrera along with Andrew Chafin. I'll give you a scoreless inning, and Jake Diekman does give up an unearned run as he was hurt by a pair of errors by both Yan Gomes and Matt Chapman, but the Oakland A's able to get it done as the Yankees wind up going 0-4 with men in scoring position in this one, so not a lot doing for a Yankees team that scored a combined 3 runs over the weekend, so that was a little bit tough. This was very tough to watch as well. Justin Turner wound up coming into a 5-0 game to pitch for the Dodgers in the 9th, as the Rockies wind up getting a 5-0 win. This is the first time, by the way, the Dodgers were shut out at home since 2016, so it had been quite a while for Antonio Senzatella. He was masterful. Gives up 2 hits over the course of 7 innings, no runs. Tyler Kinley, Carlos Estevez able to close it out from there. And for the Rockies, they could have had a whole heck of a lot more. Go 1 of 13 with men in scoring position, but CJ Cron, he was able to get his 24th home run season and his 2nd of the series. That comes off of Mitch White. For White, not what the team was hoping for. Gave up 3 runs over the course of 3 1/3 innings as a team. Is now, if I remember correctly, 8-11 in the 19 games that he's pitched in, so that's a little bit tough. Bullpen from there was able to do their job as Mr. Turner down for what? Coming in shades. It looked like there was a whole lot of dirt on his head and the back of his jersey, but he wasn't checked. Give you a scoreless inning from him. Kenley Jansen, you're able to throw in there Mr. Bersuter Gradwell for 1 2/3 innings as well. Justin Brule gave you a pair of outs out of the bullpen, but Joe Kelly looked shaky, gave up 2 runs in an inning. Shane Green had to try to clean up his mess. And for the Dodgers, 0 of 7 with men in scoring position. So they were held down by the Rockies, who the Rockies, they wound up going 6-33 in their first 39 road games. I believe that they're now 11-14 in their last 25. Not great, but at the same time, they're turning the corner. Salvador Perez is trying to turn the corner in the race for most home runs out there in the American League. He goes deep again as his Royals wind up falling to the Seattle Mariners by a count of 4-3. For Perez, that is his 5th home run, I believe, in the last 5 days, and he's got 38 overall this season. You also had Michael A. Taylor go deep for his 11th home run season, and for Perez, I believe he now has 19 home runs since the beginning of the month of June, so he has been out. Brady Singer was pretty on this one as well. Gives up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned over the course of 6 innings, as going deep off of him, that'd be Jared Kelenic, his 7th home run season, and then Kyle Seager would go deep for his 31st home run season as Juan Marco Gonzalez. Another very good start for the Seattle Mariners. He winds up giving up 2 runs over the course of 7 innings, and he has now given up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 9 starts. Paul Sewell, Drew's second rider, both giving an inning. Sewell gave up a run in the process, but for the Kansas City Royals, Taking the L in this one, Tyler Zuber. He winds up giving up another one of those home runs. He gave up 2 runs in total over the course of an inning. Josh Shamon was able to give you a scoreless inning as well, but for the Royals, certainly has been a little bit of a doldrum for them. Has not been a doldrum this year for the Milwaukee Brewers. 6-2, they take down the Minnesota Twins as it was Aaron Ashby who got the start. He winds up giving the team 5 innings, gives up 2 runs, looked relatively solid. He did give up a home run to Miguel de Sano, his 23rd home run season, but then from there, Hunter Strickland, Brad Boxberger, Devin Williams, Josh Hader, all give you scoreless innings, and for the Brewers, pair of home runs for them. Luis Urias, 18th home run season, and Rowdy Tellez was able to get his 11th, and if you're looking at Urias, by the way, he has actually been very hot with the bat recently. This is a man with 7 home runs ever since the All-Star break. He has really been able to cook for this team, and you take a look at the Minnesota Twins, and Griffin Jax got jacked up as he gave up both of those home runs. 6 runs in total over the course of 5 innings. Now, Ralph Garza Jr. was able to give you a scoreless inning, and Ian Gabo was able to chip in their 3 scoreless, so that was a little bit of a nice surprise, but certainly not the year that the Minnesota Twins were hoping for. This is not the years that the Diamondbacks were hoping for either. They wind up losing to the Philadelphia Phillies by a count of 7-4. For Madison Bumgarner, got shelled in this one. He had come off the injured list, and he had given 6 starts in which he had given up 2 runs of fear. That has not been the case in his last 2, as in this one gives up 5 runs in 5 innings. Joe Manatipley gives up 2 runs, one of which was earned over the course of his inning. Noe Ramirez along Jake Faria both give you a scoreless inning, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they strained 10 men on base. As for the Philadelphia Phillies, Mr. Ranger Suarez, another great start. He is maintaining his .48 ERA, giving up 1 run in 5 1/3 innings. He has given up 3 runs or fewer in every one of his starts so far this year. JD Hammer gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Now, Archie Bradley did give up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, but Hector Neris was able to clean things up in the 8th inning, and Ian Kennedy gets his 21st save of the season. Still has north of a 6 ERA since coming to Philly, but that was good, and you wind up having Connor Brogdon give up a run in an inning as well for the Phillies. No home runs, but they do go 4 of 11 with men in scoring position. The St. Louis Cardinals are looking to claw their way back into the National League wildcard picture, especially with the Reds losing, which I'm going to be hitting on in a minute, but unable to do so against the Pittsburgh Pirates. 4-3 the final. The Pirates wound up taking 2 out of the last 3 in this series. As for the St. Louis Cardinals, Kwon Young Kim, not a lot of length, but wasn't too bad. Gives up 1 run over the course of 4 innings, and then Alex Reyes lit this game on fire. He came into this game with the Cardinals leading by a count of 3-1 in the 9th. Gives up 3 runs, including the winning home run. Going deep for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Yoshi Satsugo. His 5th home run season, and his 5th with the Pittsburgh Pirates over the last 2 weeks. So he's been able to come on in for Will Crow. Not necessarily a great start. He does give up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, including home run. Going deep for the St. Louis Cardinals, Tommy Edman, his 9th of the season. But the Pirates got 2 scoreless out of Chad Kuhl, David Bernard, Chris Tran. They both give you a scoreless inning. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, prior to Reyes coming in, the bullpen had been solid. Luis Garcia, TJ McFarland combined for 3 scoreless innings, and Giovanni Gallegos was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. The Orioles have been anything but solid so far this year, and that wound up continuing on Sunday as they wind up losing to the Tampa Bay Rays by a count of 12-8. The Orioles have won just 1 game against the Tampa Bay Rays so far this year, and for the Orioles, they have now lost 21 out of their last 23 games, 19 by multiple runs. As for the Rays, they wound up getting a whole lot of power in this one. Austin Meadows, 22nd home run of the season, Jordan Luplow his 8th, and Joey Wendell goes deep not once but twice. His 8th and 9th home runs of the season for Spencer Watkins. Gives up 6 runs over the course of 5 innings, including 3 of those home runs. For Paul Fry, he's now got an ERA north of 6 as he gives up 4 runs in 1/3 of an inning. Connor Green lends up 2 runs over the course of 1 2/3 innings of his own. Tanner Scott gives you a scoreless inning, and Ode Lopez does as well. And for the Baltimore Orioles, a lot of power in this one. Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle both get their 24th home run season, and Ode Mateo was able to get his 3rd. As for the Tampa Bay Rays, Chris Archer winds up giving you 4 innings, giving up 2 runs. They're looking to work his way back. Josh Fleming looks like he's going to be used as sort of a super reliever for this team. Did not go well for him, giving up 4 runs while getting 4 outs in the process. Sean Armstrong, the former Baltimore Oriole, he gives up 2 runs in 1 2/3 innings. But Colin McHugh, JT Chargois, both able to give you a scoreless inning. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, this offense is now officially cooking for this team as they have scored at least 4 runs in now 12 out of their last 13 games. So it's going well for them there. Has been going well for the San Francisco Giants all year long, and they were looking to gain a little bit of ground on the Dodgers and extend that lead. Unable to do so, 9-0. The Atlanta Braves, who have been playing well themselves, were able to get the win. Anthony DeScalfani, first start in a few weeks, gives up 3 runs over the course of 3 innings, including a pair of home runs. Going deep for the Atlanta Braves off of him, that will be Jorge Soler for his 20th home run of the season, and then Austin Riley was able to get his 28th. Ozzie Albies would go deep off of Sam Long for his 23rd home run season for Long. He tried to go long in this one, 4 2/3 innings, innings. He gave up 6 runs, all of which were earned, including that homer. Austin Slater, position player, winds up getting the final out of that 8th inning. And for the Atlanta Braves, Ian Anderson, his first start off the injured list and first start in quite a while. 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Tyler Madzik able to give you the final out of the 6th inning. And then Richard Rodriguez, AJ Minter, Touki Toussaint, now coming out of the bullpen, all give you a scoreless inning. So things going well for the Atlanta Braves. The New York Mets, things have not been going well for them recently. They're 8-19 in the month of August, but they were able to get the W on Sunday by kind of 9-4. As for the Nationals, Eric Fetty Wap just got Fetty Wapped all over. 6 runs, 5 of which were earned, give it up in 5 1/3 innings, including home run. Javi Baez, who is apparently giving the thumbs down to New York Mets fans, which I don't know if I agree with. 26th home run season. Jonathan VR, he winds up getting his 15th. That comes off of Kyle McGowan, as McGowan winds up going 2/3 of an inning, giving up that solo home run. Sam Clay gives up 2 runs in an inning, and Austin Voth was able to give you a scoreless inning. And for the Washington Nationals, good sign for the team was Juan Soto and Josh Bell going deep. Bell was able to get a pair of home runs, 22nd and 23rd of the season, and Juan Soto was able to get his 22nd, as Aaron Loop wound up seeing his ERA of like a 1-1 climb to a 1-2 as he gave up one of those home runs over the course of his inning. Tyler McGill, not great, not terrible, gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. Miguel Castro, along with Ethan Embry, both give you a scoreless inning, and Jurcic Familia winds up giving up one of those home runs as well, giving up 1 run in an inning, but certainly a needed win for the New York Mets. This was certainly a needed win for the Chicago White Sox just for their confidence, as they wind up just thrashing the Chicago Cubs by a count of 13-1. I, of course, had the under in the New York Post. Rafael Ortega does not make a play in center field. It results in a ground rule double, and with 2 outs in the 5th inning, the Chicago White Sox wind up putting up a 7 spot. Not that I'm bitter or anything like that, but Kyle Hendricks gives up 8 runs over the course of 4 2/3 innings, and he gives up 3 home runs in the process. Adam Morgan, he was not Captain Morgan, he gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, and you had the same stat line for Scott Frost. That was the first career appearance for him. You wind up having Rowan Wick give up a run in an inning, and Manuel Rodriguez a scoreless inning. But for the Cubs, there was nothing doing on offense for them, as they were able to get a home run off the bat of Frank Schwindel, his 6th of the season. That was their lone run of the game. That comes off Dylan Cease, who goes 6 innings, gives up that solo home run, punches out 11. Ryan Tepera, Michael Kopech, Liam Hendricks all give you a scoreless inning. And for the White Sox, Yasmani Grandal, 17th home run season, his 3rd of the season. Brian Goodwin, his 8th home run season. Eli Jimenez, his 8th of the season. And Luis Robert goes deep not once but twice for his 5th and 6th home runs of the season. So that was a very brutal day for a Cubs team that they have had a brutal season. For the Blue Jays, they don't cover the run line, but they do take down the Detroit Tigers by a count of 2-1. Very good start here for one Jose Barrios. Winds up going 7 innings. He gives up an unearned run as he was hurt by a pair of errors out there in the field, as Bo Bichette now has 21 errors. That's got to lead the American League, but punched out 11. Barrios did. From there, Adam Simber, Tim Mazza, they combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Mr. Bichette would make up for that error, because while he's got 21 errors this year, he now has 21 homers as he goes deep off of Matthew Boyd. And then you wind up getting the first homer on the season for Mr. Kevin Smith, as well as Matthew Boyd winds up giving up those 2 solo runs over the course of his 4 innings. And then from there, Tigers did their part out of the bullpen. Derek Collin, 2 scoreless innings. Jose Cicerno, Joey Jimenez, and you're able to throw in there Jason Foley. I'll give you a scoreless inning as well. But for the Detroit Tigers, just not a lot doing. 8 hits, but they only muster 1 run out of it, so that was tough. What else has been tough? Watching this Boston Red Sox bullpen recently, as they've got a bottom 6 bullpen ERA over the last 3 days. They wind up losing to the Cleveland Indians by a count of 7-5 after Tanner Houck, he winds up giving up 3 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. And then Austin Davis lights this game on fire, giving up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Matt Burns would get the final out of the 8th inning. Josh Taylor gave you a pair of outs out of the bullpen, and Enzo Robles winds up giving up a run in an inning. It wipes out the fact that Rafael Devers went deep not once but twice in this game. 31st and 32nd home runs of the season, and Eli Morgan would give up one of those. He would give up another to Bobby Dahlbeck. His 17th home run season for Morgan gives up 2 solo runs over the course of 3 innings. One of the other home runs off the bat of Devers, that comes off of Blake Parker, gives up a run in an inning. For Justin Garza, he gives up a run in an inning. Trevor Stevens winds up giving up 1 run in 2 innings, with Brian Shaw, Emmanuel Clase both give you a scoreless inning. And for the Cleveland Indians, Jose Ramirez, 31st home run season. Austin Edges, his 7th, and now the Boston Red Sox find themselves a couple games up on the Oakland A's out there in the wild card standings. They're up by 2.5 games. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more with Matt Perrault, but that is certainly getting interesting. I mentioned the Cincinnati Reds a few minutes ago. They wound up losing to the Miami Marlins by a count of 2-1. As for the Reds, Tyler Mahle gave a good start. He gave up 2 runs over the course of 7 innings, going deep for the Miami Marlins. Asa Sanchez, his 6th home run season for Mahle. He's got right around 2 ERA on the road so far this year, so he's been solid. Lucas Sims is able to give you a scoreless inning, but for the Reds, 0-5 with men in scoring position. Jesus Luzardo, who entered into this game with a north of 9 ERA since getting traded to the Miami Marlins, he pitched a gem, giving up 1 hit and 1 walk with 8 strikeouts over the course of 6 innings. And then you have Anthony Bender give you 2 scoreless innings. Dylan Floro did give up a run in the 9th, but the Miami Marlins were able to persevere, and now they've got back-to-back wins, so that was very beneficial for them. And what else was very beneficial is if you bet the Texas Rangers on Sunday. 13-2 the final. The Rangers have been averaging right around 2.6, maybe 2.7 runs per game since the All-Star break. They had an eruption here as Adolis Garcia was able to have a home run in grand fashion. 29th home run season, grand slam off of Mr. Brian Abreu, and then you would have DJ Turn It Up Peters go deep off of Zach Greinke for his 7th home run season. For Greinke, gives up 6 runs over the course of 4 innings, including that homer. For Abreu, he gives up 7 runs in 2/3 of an inning. That was a ERA booster to say the least. From there, Brooks Raley, Phil Maton both give you a scoreless inning, and Blake Taylor 1 1/3 inning scoreless. And for the Houston Astros, lone form of offense really in this one, Yordan Alvarez, 28th home run season. That one comes off of Taylor Hearn, who gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 2/3 innings. Jarrell Cotton, DeMarcus Evans both give you a scoreless inning, and Dennis Santana was able to give you an out of the bullpen, but a good sign for the Texas Rangers. Not too many underdogs have been cashing recently, though. If you take a look over the last 30 days in Major League Baseball, favorites 258 and 141, hitting at a clip of about 64.7%. Home teams in that time span, they haven't been great. The last 7 days have been terrible. We'll talk about that in a second. 212 and 191 is home teams over the last 30 days. Over the last 7 days, 43 and 48. So that's a little bit unexpected in that time span. Unders have done very well as well. 201 unders and 178 overs over the last 30 days. So that's about a 53% rate. And if you're looking over the last 7 days, unders doing very well. 59% hit rate. 49 and 34. Meanwhile, if you're just taking a look at favorites over the last 7 days, hitting at about 63%. 56 and 33. Meanwhile, for the season, favorites are hitting at a rate of about 59.5 to 60%. 1,155 to 775. That is officially 59.8%, according to our friends at Covers. Home teams this season, 1,064 and 884, winning at a rate of 54.6%. And unders have a lead on overs by a count of 936 unders, 919 overs, so that's about 50.5% to the under. That is what we all wound up seeing in Major League Baseball on Sunday, and that's a look at the trends just in general from a betting perspective this year. Now let's take a look at this American League wildcard picture, and let's take a look at the games for Monday. We're going to be inviting on Matt Perrault of the Daily Juice Podcast, along with Sports Map Radio's show Pushing the Odds, to chat about that next right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
The Fall Line is a true crime podcast covering the coldest cases in the southeastern United States and occasionally beyond. We focus on the missing persons, the unsolved murders, and the unidentified does that don't get media attention. Empathetic and intensively researched, The Fall Line will take you on deep dives into unsolved cases that you've never heard of and make you wonder why you haven't. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Greg is calling in a pinch hitter from the Overtime Network hotline.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. It is great to be joined by our guest, as this man does a terrific job as a host for both Sports Map Radio along with Sirius XM Channel 201, as it is Matt Perrault joining me on the podcast. You're able to hear his show Pushing the Odds, as I mentioned, on Sports Map Radio along with Sirius XM from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday through Friday. If you're looking out here on the West Coast, that is 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So he does a great job over there. He also does a podcast, which you're able to catch wherever you get this fine podcast. That is called The Daily Juice. He, much like myself, has a big-time Ironman streak going. He's north of 300 days. And when you're north of 300 days with a daily podcast, you are doing something right. Believe me, someone who knows the grind, I salute him for that. Also doing some great work over there for Betting Pros NFL, as well as it is Matt Perrault joining me on the podcast. And you're able to follow him on Twitter at Sports Talk Matt. And Matt, great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite. And yes, that is true. I think I'm getting near 400 consecutive days of the podcast and betting. I had never bet every single day before I started the podcast, so it's been a unique experiment. And the Ironman streak of betting every day is something that it's not for everybody, but you definitely get used to the ups and the downs. The roller coaster ride becomes sort of part of your monthly grind of winning and losing, as we all know when it comes to the sports betting game.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to have your good days. You're going to have your bad days. If you run into someone on Twitter that's like, oh, I'm hitting 80% for my career and I'm betting 35 games a day, they're probably lying to you. So always keep that in mind. I mean, heck, if you're just able to grind out a little bit of a profit at the end of the year, I don't care how big, how little it is, you're certainly doing something right, because the books, they're out there to make money, and year in and year out, they do a pretty good job of it. So any profit, you're doing quite well. And Matt, I can tell you, it certainly has been a little bit of a bumpy ride for your favorite team, the Boston Red Sox, but compared to what we expected at the beginning of the year, things are going well. Now, they were able to get some wins over the weekend over the Cleveland Indians, which that certainly does help them out. But how do you gauge this team moving forward? Because with the Red Sox, it certainly has been a little bit of a bumpy ride for them, but now they should be getting a little bit of help in a bullpen that, let's face it, has not been great the last 30 days. Overall for the year, about league average, but getting Chris Sale into the fold, I think, is really going to pay dividends for this team moving forward, because in his first couple starts, it hasn't necessarily looked like vintage Chris Sale, but you can tell that he certainly is an upgrade from the guys that we were seeing before, like Martin Perez and Garrett Richards.
Yeah, it bumps everybody down a spot, right? So you're not expecting Nathan Eovaldi to be your number one anymore, and it allows guys like Taylor Hawk to be, just a 3 or a 4, and you don't need him to be a guy that goes out there every fifth day and you have to win because the team's scuffling. So, having Chris Sale is huge. I mean, it's an enormous opportunity for the Red Sox to have a guy every fifth day that when you hand the ball to, you expect to win. So from a betting perspective, I mean, obviously you should be eyeballing Chris Sale starts. The juice is going to be quite significant. So, I mean, I don't know how you feel about two-leg money line parlays, but these are the times of the year where you look at the Orioles, you look at whoever they're playing the Orioles, you look at the Diamondbacks on the road, you look at the Rockies on the road, you look at, the Mets. There are just certain teams where you can do a two-line money line parlay and feel pretty good about the opportunity to cash on it and getting normally like plus 150 odds on it. I don't like parlaying per se, but that's one way of approaching starts with Chris Sale and other people that are out there. So, I mean, the Red Sox are going to have a really tough run. The Yankees are better. The Rays are better. They are clearly the third best team in the division. I don't think there's any debate on that. It's just a matter of whether or not they can keep the A's at bay and beat them for the second wild card spot. And then we could be in for a Chris Sale versus Garrett Cole winner take all Yankee Stadium wild card playoff game, which would be absolutely phenomenal if it happened. So, I mean, I think that's the best case scenario for the Red Sox. I mean, the worst case scenario is that the A's play really well and the Red Sox fall on their face and the Red Sox miss the postseason. But, I bet them over 79 wins because I thought this team, the lineup was better than people were expecting, and last year was an anomaly. And even though JD Martinez has struggled a little bit lately, you still have one of the best 3-4-5s in the American League. Kiki Hernandez has been an absolute dream addition for this team at the top of the lineup. And Kyle Schwarber coming on has been, basically nearly 0.7 to 1 WAR since joining the Red Sox. So it's a huge addition from a lineup perspective to have that left-handed power bat to go along with Rafael Devers. They're going to be a good team. Next year, maybe the time when they add some more pitching and bullpen help, they could be a contender for the pennant. But all in all, I've been very happy with the Red Sox because my expectations were the team's going to win about 84, 85 games, and they'll be in contention for that second wild card. If they miss it, so be it. But people who were saying they were going to win 65, 70 games, I thought were crazy.
Yeah, and after that first series against the Baltimore Orioles, I think everyone thought that their under for season wins on Boston Red Sox was going to cash very easily. Well, turns out it's going to be the exact opposite way. If the over for season wins on Boston Red Sox does not cash, well, something has went horribly wrong the last month of the season. But I know that you wound up mentioning the fact that you're going to be looking at some two-team money line parlays the next month or so with some of these bad teams. And when I take a look at it, I do think that there are a couple teams out there that you're able to bet the run line against them almost every night. I'm not going to do that every single time, but when you take a look at the Baltimore Orioles, this is a bunch that they have lost 21 out of their last 23 games. Out of those 21 losses, 19 of them have been by multiple runs. That's a team I'm certainly going to be looking to bet the run line against. When you take a look at a team like, we'll even throw out there like the Arizona Diamondbacks, when you got something like Madison Bumgarner out there, I'm going to be a little bit less inclined to bet a run line against them just because you do have that frontline starter. If you have the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road, there's a very likely chance that the bullpen blows it by giving up like a solo homer or a 2-run shot at the end of the game, and it winds up landing on one. And I think that that's something that you want to take a look at as well, because I do think that there's going to be a clear division between the haves and have-nots, and you really want to be gauging some of these teams that they are maybe going to play a couple more one-run games. Meanwhile, you take a look at a team like the Orioles and, well, they just haven't been close all year long.
No, I think if you're an Orioles fan, you pretty well know your team's going to have the number one pick in the draft next year, and you probably want them at this point to have the number one pick in the draft next year. But I think just from a betting perspective, if you're Major League Baseball, you have to be kind of frustrated because there are some teams that simply have been so bad on the road. I mean, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, I mean, you could just blindly bet them and bet against them. And okay, maybe they might get you a couple of times, but overall, you're going to wind up being very successful betting on the money line or in the run line against these teams every single night just because they do not play well on the road and they've got nothing to play for either. So when they're playing contenders, it's just a huge opportunity, I think, for bettors to even lay some pretty heavy juice if you want to. And that's, I think that's why I'm talking about the money line parlays, is because, I mean, the books aren't stupid, making you pay $3 in some of these money lines because they know what these teams are doing. And it's bad for the game, but as gamblers, we can take advantage of the fact that there's a huge difference between a have and a have not right now.
I agree. I sort of look at it the same way we were looking at the NBA a few years ago, which you just had a bunch of really, really bad teams that they all just wanted the number one pick. I don't think it's as much for draft positioning here in baseball. I think it's just teams are so darn cheap they want to see what they've got this year in some of their September call-ups. But we certainly are seeing some teams that they're not trotting out there a competitive team, to your point, as we do have Matt Peralt of Pushing the Odds joining me on the podcast. And Matt, when you take a look at the slate for Monday, I do think that this is going to be a very intriguing one, as typically on a Monday, we just don't necessarily have a lot of games. This Monday, we've actually got a good slate of them. I take a look at a pair of teams that are going to be vying for that National League wild card in the Cincinnati Reds on the St. Louis Cardinals. With the Cardinals, they're going to be throwing out their John Lester, and John Lester is a guy that I just have absolutely no faith in whatsoever. Meanwhile, you've got Luis Castillo, who's going for the Reds. This is a spot in which I might be targeting a run line with the Reds, just because when I take a look at this spot for John Lester, he's given up at least 3 runs in 7 out of his last 10 starts. Meanwhile, for Luis Castillo, this is someone that has really been able to lock in throughout his career. He's always been better at home versus on the road. The Reds in general have really been able to get their offense going. And when I take a look at this spread, I'm seeing it right around a -175 to a -180 on the money line for the Reds, and that's a little bit too much for me to take. And at the same time, I want no part whatsoever in a guy like John Lester.
You know, it's weird, though, because I bet against Lester with the Tigers in his last start against the Tigers, and Lester with the Cardinals wound up. He went 5 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned run. He gave up 4 against Milwaukee, but then the time before that on the road, he went 5 2/3, 7 hits, and 1 earned run. So 2 of the last 3 starts for Lester, he's been okay. I like this Reds team a lot. I think India's going to win the Rookie of the Year. I thought it was an incredible story. Wade Miley has been just outstanding. The Reds are a team I want them to make the postseason, so I don't mind backing them here today, because now we're getting into September, and it really is go time for any of these teams that are trying to make noise and trying to make a wild card push. Every game, every win, everything's going to be so important, because the Reds know they have a 1.5 game lead on the Padres. Padres are ferociously mad that they are currently sitting outside the wild card spot, because they thought they could win the division this year, let alone lose a wild card spot to Cincinnati. But 10 games over 500. They've lost a couple of games in a row. I think that this Reds team is due to get rolling here. I don't mind the pitching matchup, but be careful with Lester. There may be value on the under given the 2 pitchers.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've got a total of 9 in this spot, and with the St. Louis Cardinals, they've scored the 3rd fewest runs in the National League ever since the beginning of the month of June, which I find to be intriguing, because some guys that you would think would be good in the St. Louis Cardinals bullpen, they have been really waning. Alex Reyes, ever since the beginning of the month of July, he's got like a 4-ish ERA. Meanwhile, it's been TJ McFarland who's been the best bullpen piece for the St. Louis Cardinals. Meanwhile, for the Reds, ever since they picked up Luis Cessa and Michael Givens, I'm not going to say that the bullpen's been amazing or anything like that, but it's been a little bit more reliable, to your point, and I do think that it might be a little bit sneaky here on the under just because of that.
Yeah, I think people right now are expecting Cincinnati games to go way over because the ballpark is a launching pad. And I get that. I do think that when these games get tight and you have a tough lefty like Lester, I think they're either first 5 under or maybe full game under. Take a look at it, because there may be some value given the arms that we're going to see.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be one that I'm going to be locked in on, especially with the wild card race coming down to these 2 teams, along with the San Diego Padres, who they're just completely lost and out there in the division. It is right now the Giants and the Dodgers to lose. And for the San Francisco Giants are going to be playing us the Milwaukee Brewers. Corbin Burns is going to be going for them against Johnny Cueto, and we just keep talking about it. Will the San Francisco Giants regress? Will the San Francisco Giants regress? Well, here we are approaching September. I think that we can safely say that answer is no. Now, Johnny Cueto, he has been a little bit shaky throughout the year, but by and large, team has been able to get the job done whenever he's been out there on the mound, and we know what Corbin Burns is at this point, a guy who's a fringe Cy Young candidate, if not a fringe Cy Young candidate, a pretty hardcore Cy Young candidate, and I think that this is going to be a very intriguing series for both of these teams because if you think back about a month or so ago, the Giants wound up winning that insane game in which Avisail Garcia winds up losing the fly ball in the lights, and the Giants were able to take 2 of 3 in that series. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens both on Monday and just in the series in general.
Yeah, I'm really curious. The one thing about the Giants, and I love this Giants team, I love the fact that Brandon Belt has played so well. Darren Ruff's a guy I've known since he was in college at Creighton University. Mike Yastrzemski is from my hometown of Andover, Massachusetts. So I've been watching this Giants team and been in love with them. But my question for the Giants is Jake McGee. I've been on the Giants enough times this year to get burned by him. I like Tyler Rogers. I think he's a different type of arm coming out of the bullpen. He just doesn't throw very hard to be a dominant closer, only throwing 85 miles per hour, but the delivery is so funky, it's difficult to take care of business with him. But Jake McGee is just a roller coaster ride that I don't want to ride here if the Giants are in the postseason in a one-run game. It's the only piece that worries me. I love the starting pitching overall. Logan Webb and Alex Wood have both been really good. I know the Gosman, top of the rotation, has gotten a lot of attention, but Wood and Webb have made me a good amount of money this year just by going ahead and backing those two guys. In particular, if you get games where the Giants are dogs and they're plus 1.5 on the run line, when they lose, they generally lose by 1 run. So it's a chance to kind of get in there. And the juice isn't that bad. Sometimes it's minus 150, minus 160. It's not horrible. So look, this Giants team is super fun. I think with Chris Bryant, they're the best team in the National League right now. I wasn't a big, huge believer in the Dodgers. I still think there's big questions with that bullpen for the Dodgers. But it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the postseason to see if the Giants, who have that championship swagger, getting them back in there and having a chance to go after another pennant and/or World Series.
To your point, the Giants on the run line going into Sunday as an underdog, getting a run and a half, 41-8.
Yeah,
that is
huge.
Pretty darn good. As we do a Matt Burrell show to be on the podcast, and then one more here because this is an interesting one because we don't have a lineup on this game and we probably aren't until the morning. The LA Angels are going to be playing us the New York Yankees, and what I really want to see is how does Corey Kluber look for the Yankees? Because prior to him going on the injured list, he was actually really starting to put it together. He was not necessarily looking like vintage Kluber, but at the same time, he was looking like a guy that you could back if you were the New York Yankees. He goes on the injured list. This is going to be his first start since the beginning of the summertime. He's going up against an Angels team that, well, to say that they're scuffling would be generous, so you got that going on. I'm not sure what your expectations are for Kluber, but I would think that this is probably going to be like an opener plus situation. He probably winds up going like 3, maybe 4 innings. The Yankees try to build him back up. I don't know if you have different expectations, but I think that this is just something in which the Yankees are going to hope to ease him back in the first start or two, and then hope they can deliver some big starts towards the middle/back half of September into early October.
Well, there's 2 pieces to this. Let's just start with today's game with the Angels and the Yankees. It's seen the latest, but Ohtani got hit in the hand over the weekend with a fastball. So if Ohtani's not in the lineup here, the Yankees' money line is going to be through the roof. So there may be some value on the run line for the Yankees. But without Ohtani, this lineup for the Angels is just absolutely disgusting. They can't really score. Ohtani is their real big weapon there in that lineup. They have some young hitters who have done well, but Yankees' run line is one thing I would look at, even with Corey Kluber going probably 2 or 3 innings just to see what he can do. But the fact that Yankee fans were jumping up and down about Andrew Heaney coming over, and I was like, tell me you don't bet on baseball without telling me you don't bet on baseball. And if you're celebrating Andrew Heaney going from the Angels to the Yankees, you're not betting baseball. You don't understand what that guy has been. And then look what he's done so far with the Yankees. He got a decent start against the Red Sox. I understand that. But for the most part, he's been an absolute gas can on a fire for the Yankees, and it's not been a good situation. So Kluber was what everyone said was, oh, well, they must believe that Corey Kluber is going to come back and be good because they're grabbing a 6 or 7 starter and Andrew Heaney will be in the bullpen come the playoffs because Kluber is going to be in the rotation, not Andrew Heaney. Okay, let's see what happens with that. I mean, if Kluber comes back and if he is typical, 3 ERA, whip of 1.1 Corey Kluber, then okay. But if he's not, the Yankees do have a concern, at least I have a concern with the Yankees in a 7-game series against a staff like the Rays. If you're facing the Rays, I still would favor the Rays to knock the Yankees out, even with their big bats on fire for the Yankees, because of the arms that the Rays have. With their injuries, I still like the Rays as a whole, pitching-wise, over the Yankees. So I'm very curious about Corey Kluber, because if he's good and back, the Yankees very well might be a World Series contender and maybe maybe the team to beat in the American League if Kluber is really there and good.
Yeah, forget the fact that you don't bet baseball if you're thinking that Andrew Heaney's an upgrade. You probably haven't watched an Angels game in a few years as well. I mean, this guy's just not been good. I am right there with you. So very curious to see how Corey Kluber is looking for the Yankees on Monday. But a man that is always looking good, that'd be you, Matt. You do a terrific job with the show, pushing the odds every Monday through Friday, Sports Map Radio, Sirius XM Channel 204. You do the Daily Juice podcast, which you're able to find wherever you find this fine podcast. I know you're doing some work for the NFL season with Betting Pros and a couple other platforms as well. So let the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and just everything that you've got going on in general.
Yeah, it's too boring and too long to list it all, but I'm as busy as you are. The best way to follow me at Sports Talk Matt on Twitter for everything. I do long form podcasts, short form podcasts. Radio is kind of a ridiculous time right now, but I wouldn't want it any other way to go 1,000 miles an hour with my hair on fire. So look, September is a great time. We have playoff stretches. We've got postseason coming down the pike for baseball, and we've got NFL and college football back. So it's a great time with full stands and all these leagues coming back. It's going to be a really fun fall.
Yeah, 15 months ago, we had absolutely nothing. We were betting on tabletop tennis out there in Russia and Korean baseball. So trust me, things are a little bit better now. I'd rather be a little bit too busy than not busy at all. I'm sure that Matt has it the exact same way, and he always does a great job whenever he joins this podcast. Does a great job in general when it comes to Daily Juice, pushing the odds and so much more. So big thanks to him for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you sign total on every game on the betting board for this Monday in a little something like called Touch 'em All.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Always a pleasure to get Matt Peralta on the podcast. He does a great job with the Daily Juice. That is a podcast in which you're able to find that wherever you get this fine podcast. And then he also does, on top of that, all of his work over there at Sports Map Radio every Monday through Friday with pushing the odds and so much more. So big thanks to him. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Monday, and a little something like call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at GRSquarty1. As per usual, we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go National League games first, then the American League games, and then any interleague games are going to be at the bottom, so we are going to have a good time with this. And as per usual, if there are any changes that are made, they will be listed on the spreadsheet along with that Twitter feed. And we are going to be starting with that first National League game, 9:51, 9:52 on the betting board. Also, the New York Post play of the day, as we've got the St. Louis Cardinals hitting the road to face off against the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and they're on to Luis Castillo taking the bump for them. Meanwhile, John Lester is going to be on the bump for the Cards. Totals anywhere between 9 to 9.5. On the 9, overs anywhere between -110 and -120. Unders anywhere between even and -110 on the 9.5. Under is -120, and the over is even. If you're looking at the Reds, anywhere between -178 and -190 is your price. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Cards, getting anywhere between +160 and +165. And if you're taking a look at the run line, you're finding that with the Cincinnati Reds, anywhere between even money to as good as +110, and that is the New York Post today, being able to get even money / a little bit of a plus price with the Cincinnati Reds on the run line. For our friends the Cardinals, even though they have won each out of Lester's last 3 starts, it's not like he's been great in them. He's given up 4+ runs in 3 out of his 5 starts since getting traded. Overall this year is north of a 5 ERA, has a 6 ERA since getting traded to the St. Louis Cardinals, giving up nearly 2 home runs per 9 innings. You take a look at what he's done away from Washington, D.C. / away from St. Louis, and he's got a 6.15 ERA. He's given up 9 home runs in 33 2/3 innings. Opponents are hitting a 3.29 off of him in true road starts, and overall this year, a 3.09. And he's going up against a Reds team that they rank in the top 3 when it comes to home runs and total runs per game at home, and this is despite the fact that they've been without Jesse Winker for quite a while. Had a little bit of a a rough go of it in Miami the last 2 days, but you still got a guy in Jonathan India. You're able to pair him up with Tyler Stevenson as guys at the top of the fold have north of a 375 on base. Joey Votto, Nick Castellanos, both of these guys have been able to combine for 52 bombs. With Joey Votto, he leads the National League with regards to home runs ever since the All-Star break. You got Kyle Farmer batting right around at 250. Taylor Naquin sitting at 275 for the year. But you take a look at what he's done in the month of August, and this is a man that has really been able to show out. He's got a north of 400 batting average, has been able to go deep 6 times already this month, so he's been able to do a nice job there. Then you take a look at this Reds bullpen, and it's not great by any means, but you have been able to get some good innings out of guys like Luis Sessa. Lucas Sims is back in the fold for you. I like what Michael Givens is able to Givens this bullpen as well. Then you take a look at the Cardinals, and Alex Reyes has looked very shaky. He wound up losing the game yesterday for the St. Louis Cardinals. Giovanni Gallegos is someone that you're able to look to, but Genesis Cabrera, north of a 5 ERA over the last 2 months, so that has been a little bit of an issue for this team. You got a lot of guys that they do a solid job of being able to reach base. Dylan Carlson, Yadier Molina, Nolan Arenado, you're able to throw in there Tommy Edmond, Tyler O'Neill. All these guys are in between about a 253 to a 270, and for O'Neill and Paul Goldschmidt, both of these guys have 21 home runs for you. You've been able to get 26 with Nolan Arenado, but you do have quite a few guys that they just don't do a great job with men in scoring position. Lars Nootbaar is able to give you a tad bit of something, but Harrison Bader is starting to fade as well. Then you take a look at what you're able to get out of Mr. Castillo, and this guy throughout his career has had a 0.5 better ERA at home than he has on the road, and that's been the case so far this year. 350 home ERA, 507 road ERA. He's given up 3 runs or fewer with regards to earned runs in now 15 out of his last 16 starts, so he's been doing a great job there. And in Cincinnati, giving up 4 home runs in 74 and 2/3 innings. So the New York Post for the day is going to be the run line of the Cincinnati Reds, and I do think that this is going to be a higher scoring game because I think that the Reds wind up lining up John Lester. So I'm going to be taking the total over, and I'm going to be taking the run line with the Cincinnati Reds. We move on to 953, 954 on the betting board. You've got the Philadelphia Phillies, and they're going to be hitting the road to face off against the Washington Nationals. Josiah Gray is going to be going for the Nats. Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler is going to be on the bump for the Phillies, who find themselves as massive road favorites, anywhere between minus 173 and minus 195. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Nats, you're going to be getting them anywhere between a plus 157 and a plus 168. 8 to 8.5 is your total. On the 8 overs, minus 120, seeing a minus 115 out there as well. Unders anywhere between even and minus 105. On the 8.5, over and under anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. And the Phillies have been able to bank on Zach Wheeler all year long, but you take a look at what he's done out here in the month of August, and it has not been really good. He's got an ERA for the month right around a 4.62. You expect a little bit more out of him. He has given up 5 home runs over the course of 37 innings, and if you just take a look at it on the surface, this is a guy that he has now given up at least 4 runs in 5 out of his last 8 starts, at least 3 runs given up in all but 2 out of his last 8 starts, so he certainly has been getting banged around a little bit now. The strikeout numbers for Zach Wheeler, they have been very good. He's got over 200 strikeouts. He leads the league with that regard, giving you right around 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but on the road, he also has a 3.62 ERA compared to a 2.49 home ERA. He has given up just 3 home runs when he's been on the road, but opponents starting at 247 off of him compared to a 200 at home. And then for the Washington Nationals, this is an offense that has been able to get going a little bit more, and it's been a little bit irky-jerky with them, but you do have a guy in Juan Soto that's able to give you right around a 440 on base. This is someone that, along with Josh Bell, both of these guys have between 22 and 23 home runs. And then Alcides Escobar has been able to hit about a 282 for this bunch as well. Trace Barrera has been able to give you a tad bit of something now. Luis Garcia, Lane Thomas, you've got a couple guys that they need to pick it up with regards to batting average, but they have been able to find a way to be about a league average offense ever since the trade deadline. Losing Trey Turner down for what hasn't really hurt them. Pitching has been absolutely abysmal, though. With the Washington Nationals, you do have a couple guys that you're able to look to out of the bullpen. Ryan Harper has been able to give you some good innings. Kyle Finnegan is someone that I do like as well. Neither guy wound up getting used up as well. But then you take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies, and this is a team that they have been so different home to road. At home, the Philadelphia Phillies have a 39 and 28 record. On the road, 27 and 36 with this Phillies team as well. You just take a look at the bullpen. JD Hammer has been able to do a nice job for you. Even Archie Bradley has a sub-3 ERA. I'm able to trust in him, but ever since getting to the Philadelphia Phillies, Ian Kennedy just has not been doing his job, and I think that that's putting it very politely, as he's got an ERA north of 6 with the Philadelphia Phillies and Yandy Los Santos, someone that I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in either. And then you take a look at this Phillies lineup, and you've been able to get this team cooking with some gas a little bit, as you do have JT Realmuto. He, along with Ronald Torreyes, are hitting between about a 255 to a 265, and Jade Segura hitting just below 300. Bryce Harper, .420 on base. He has been able to go D25 times so far this year. Andrew McCutchen needs to bump up the batting average of a .220, but still .335 on base. He's went deep 21 times so far this year, so got a little bit of something there, but I do think that this is a little bit steep to be able to take the Phillies because Josiah Gray has actually been really good. Now, overall for the year, he has given up 3 home runs per 9 innings, which that is a lot of home runs, but you also take a look at the swing and miss stuff and the way that he's been able to dial in general. It has been very good, along with 3 home runs given up per 9 innings. He's given up right around 3 walks per 9 innings. You take a look at him ever since he's gotten to Washington, D.C., and he's given up more than 2 runs in just one of his starts, and that was a start in which we wound up giving up 3 runs. So 3 runs or fewer given up in every one of them. Has a .289 ERA ever since getting traded. He has been giving up quite a few solo home runs, but other than that, he has really been doing a great job for the Washington Nationals, and it's a spot in which I just can't trust in the Philadelphia Phillies on the road. So, yeah, anything above a plus 160 would have been willing to take a shot on the Washington Nationals. We have gotten past that, so taking the Nats. Also wound up saying this only 8.7 with the way that Wheeler's been struggling recently. So, going over along with the Nats. 955, 956 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be playing us the Slam Diego Padres. Chris Paddock is going to be going for the Pods. Meanwhile, Tyler Gilbert is going to be going for the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are finding themselves as sizable underdogs here, anywhere between plus 145 and plus 155. Meanwhile, the Pods are sizable favorites in this spot of anywhere between a minus 165 and a minus 170, seeing a straight minus 163 out there as well. 9 to 9.5 is your total. On the 9.5, unders anywhere between a strange minus 112 at circa to minus 125. Meanwhile, the over, that's anywhere between plus 105 and minus 108. Meanwhile, on the 9s, overs anywhere between minus 115 to minus 120. The unders anywhere between even and minus 105. With Gilbert, he certainly has had a little bit of a fall off since a no-hitter, but, well, you really couldn't do a whole heck of a lot better than that, and that no-hitter, ironically enough, came against the San Diego Padres. So the Padres don't have necessarily great history with him. Now, you take a look at Gilbert, and he is not a swing and miss guy. This is someone that has given you right around 7-ish strikeouts per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate, that's hovering right around 4, but I take a look at what he was able to do in the minor leagues. He was able to do a good job with his control there. Did not wind up getting taken deep too many times. Meanwhile, this is a guy in Paddock that is going to be making his first start in a little bit over 30 days, and prior to going on the injured list, it's not like it was going great for him. Now, the one thing I will say for Paddock is that he's got a 6.59 home ERA and a 3.91 road ERA. That makes no sense because he pitches for the San Diego Padres, but you take a look at him away from San Diego, opponents are getting a 230 off of him, 330 off of him when he's in San Diego. So we got that going on, but this is a Padres bullpen that they wound up getting a very rare day off on Sunday, so that is actually going to help them out because this is a bullpen that has been used for the most innings out there in the National League. You got a bunch of guys like Craig Stammen, Pierce Johnson, even a guy like Nabel Crismat. They're able to give you some length. They've been relatively steady for the team. Tim Hill certainly has had his ups and downs, but by and large, they've been able to get the job done. Meanwhile, the Arizona Diamondbacks, to say that the bullpen is getting the job done would be a lie, as you've got guys like Matt Peacock, Caleb Smith, Jake Faria, who were starting at the beginning of the year. They're coming out of the bullpen, so they're able to give you length, but at the same time, they're sort of fish out of water. Joe Manatipley actually has right around a 4-ish ERA. He's been okay. Tyler Clippard has been able to give you a tad bit of something, but then you take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this is a bunch that they're getting going on offense. At least 4 runs in now 4 out of their last 5 games. You've got Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte. He's hitting for right around a 400 on base, 345 batting average. Josh Rojas along with Pavin Smith. Both of these guys are hitting north of a 265. Both of these guys have been able to give you a double-digit amount of homers. You've got a couple guys like a Carson Kelly, a David Peralta hitting in that neighborhood of about a 250, 255-ish, so that has been encouraging. Then you take a look at the Padres, and this is a team that they just appear to be a little bit lost right now, especially on offense. I believe that they have scored 4 runs or fewer in now 15 out of their last 18 games. You've got Fernando Tatis Jr., who ever since the beginning of the month of August has been up and down. When he came back with that injury, he wound up having 2 home runs in that first game against the Diamondbacks. Ever since then, he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Manny Machado the last 2 weeks, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Now, you take a look at these guys for the year. Eric Hosmer, Jake Cronenworth, Austin Supernola, Tatis, you're able to throw in their Machado as well. Only between about a 268 to a 280, and with Tatis Jr. north of 30 home runs, but they certainly have been on a little bit of a funk recently. Will Myers has been able to hit right around 265. He's able to give you a little bit of power, and these guys draw their walks. They've just been poor with men in scoring position, and I do think that this is a spot in which Gilbert is going to be able to do a good job of being able to stymie this Padres team a little bit, and I just really don't have a lot of faith in Chris Paddock in this spot as well. This is a total in which I am going to be taking under. I do think that it's going to be a little bit of a slog for for the Arizona Diamondbacks to score as well, so I wound up saying this is 8.4. We're diving under, but going to be taking the plus price with the D-backs. I was willing to take anything above plus 140. 957, 958 on the betting board. The San Francisco Giants are going to be playing us to the Milwaukee Brewers. One Corbin Burns is going to be going for the Brewker. Johnny Cueto is going to be on the bump for the Giants. Giants are finding themselves as anywhere between plus 125 and plus 134 underdogs. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Brewker, anywhere between minus 140, minus 145, 7.5 is your total. Under is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 123. Yeah, that's a random one. If you're looking at the over, that is anywhere between a minus 115 and a plus 103. Circa's dealing out some strange straddles right now, but we are going to be taking a look at this total over because I wound up saying it a little bit north of 8. With Johnny Cueto, this is someone that has been giving up a couple runs recently. With Cueto, I do think that it is going to be fascinating to see what we're going to be able to get out of him because he has been allowing opponents to hit him quite a bit, but he hasn't necessarily been giving up that hard contact as opponents overall hit a 275 off of him. He's giving up right around only about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, and the walks, he has been able to keep those down as well, right around 2.3 walks per 9 innings, and he has been no doubt much better in San Francisco. Opponents are getting 244 off of him at home, 308 on the road. Is giving up 8 home runs over the course of 58 and third innings in San Francisco, but his walks per 9, that is right around a 1.3 as well. Then you take a look at Corbin Burns, and this guy's been very masterful. He has a .87 road ERA, a 5-0 record, and 10 road starts, giving up 3 home runs in 62 and 2/3 innings. Opponents are getting a .95 off of him, and he's given up 9 walks in north of 62 innings. So we know what we're getting there now with the Milwaukee Brewers. The lineup has been a little bit in flux recently. This is a team that they have scored at least 4 runs in, I believe, just one out of their last 5 games, north of 4 runs, because they've scored approximately 4 in a few of these. But you take a look at this Brewers team, and you now have Willie Adames back in the fold. That is very big. He was DHing in that series against the Minnesota Twins because he has been dealing with an injury, but ever since getting to Milwaukee, he's been hitting about a 290. He's got north of 20 home runs so far this year. Rowdy Tellez, ever since he got to Milwaukee, this is another guy that has really been able to thrive. Was unable to find room to be able to play in Toronto. He gets to Milwaukee, hitting right around 275, and I believe that pretty much like all but 2 or 3 of his home runs have come with the Brewers, so he's been able to do a solid job there. Christian Yelich seemed to be finding it as well. He's hitting north of a 250 now with a 375 on base. You've got Colt Wong hitting about a 285, and with this Brewers team, the bullpen has been very good. You did wind up using up Devin Williams and Josh Hader, along with Brad Boxberger and Hunter Strickland yesterday, but even a guy like a Jake Cousins is someone that you're able to rely upon. You got to figure that you're going to be able to run 1 or 2 of those guys back, and Corbin Burns is someone that is able to give you a bunch of innings. Before the San Francisco Giants, they themselves have been able to do a great job with their bullpen. They did wind up having to use a position player yesterday because things wound up getting out of hand, but even guys like a Jarlin Garcia have been able to do a good job for you. Dominic Leone, sub-2 ERA. Even Jay Jackson is right around a 3.3 ERA, and with the San Francisco Giants, this is a team that just up and down. They've got so much power. You've got one guy with north of 21 home runs so far this year, and that's Chris Bryant. You've got just all these guys between 13 and 21 home runs. Mike Yastrzemski, Austin Dickerson, Darren Ruff, Wilmer Flores, Buster Posey, Lamonte Wade, Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford. With Crawford sitting right around 290, Buster Posey's hitting above a 300. Got guys like Belt, Wade, and Flores hitting between about a 240 to a 250, but even a guy like Mike Yastrzemski, he's got a 223 batting average, but his on-base percentage is more like a 310, so these guys figure out a way to be able to get on. With the Brewers, I do think that they should be a favorite here with Corbin Burns, but I wasn't willing to lay anything north of about a minus 125-ish, getting the San Francisco Giants at north of a plus 130. We were talking about how profitable this team has been with as an underdog with our good friend Matt Peralta. I'm going to be taking the Giants once again with that plus price. I also said this all at 8.2, so going over along with the Giants. 959, 960 on the betting board. The Atlanta Braves are going to be in the road to face off against the LA Dodgers. One Julio Arias is going to be going for the Dodgers. Meanwhile, Drew Smyly is going to be on the bump for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are finding themselves as sizable underdogs in this spot. Going to be getting them anywhere between plus 170 and plus 181. Meanwhile, if you're looking to lay it here with LA, you're going to be getting them anywhere between minus 190 and minus 201. Also seeing a minus 185 out there. Your total on this game is 9. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. With Smyly, he has actually led the Braves to a whole bunch of victories. 12-1 in his last 13 starts. In that time span, he's got about a 3.50 ERA, so it hasn't necessarily been due to him. It's because the offense has been really, really explosive behind him. You take a look at Smyly, and he's given up right around 2 home runs per 9 innings. He hasn't necessarily been too terrific. He's giving up a little bit over 3 walks per 9 innings. You take a look at it, hit, and he's given up at least 3 runs in now 4 out of his last 5 starts as well. So it's not like this guy's come out there and he's been absolute nails. He's just got a lineup in the Atlanta Braves that they're doing a great job of being able to hit. You've got all these guys with at least 22 home runs so far this year. Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman, Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson, along with Adam Duvall. So these guys have really stepped up. Even a guy like Jorge Soler, he's got 20 home runs so far this year. I still remember in like early to mid-July, he was sitting on 7. He's had 13 home runs over the last 2 months for this team. So he has been able to really surge. You've got Riley and Freeman, both hitting between a 295 and a 305. Dansby Swanson, along with Eddie Rosario. These guys are hitting between a 255 and a 265. And welcome back, Eddie Rosario, for the Atlanta Braves as well. Bullpen has been relatively average. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been terrible. They wound up shipping off Shane Green, who's now with the LA Dodgers, but AJ Minter now off the injured list. Richard Rodriguez is able to give you a little bit of something. You've got Jesse Chavez, who by and large this year has been able to give you a 3 ERA, so that has been good. And for the LA Dodgers, they threw Justin Turner out of the bullpen in a 5-0 game yesterday. That is not a good sign for this team. It was the first time, by the way, that the Dodgers were shut out in Dodger Stadium since, I believe, 2016. And you take a look at Mr. Udio Arias, and he has actually done his best work on the road. This is a man that at home so far this year, 3.86 ERA, 3-1 record in 10 starts. He's given up 7 home runs in 58 and a third innings, and opponents are getting 251 off of him. On the road, he's 11-2 with a 2.70 ERA, and opponents have been able to hit only a 204 off of him. So I think that that's an interesting split. But you take a look at this Dodgers team, and you've got power upon power as all these guys have been able to deliver at least 16 home runs for you. AJ Pollock, Chris Taylor, Mookie Betts, Justin Turner down for what? Trey Turner down for what? Max Muncy, Will Smith. So you're certainly locked and loaded there. Cody Bellinger has continued to struggle, but even Albert Pujols, when he's out there, he's been able to do a solid job with his bat. Corey Seager has been a little bit banged up. This bullpen of the Dodgers, it is getting quite a bit taxed. You have been able to get some good innings out of these guys because the bullpen ERA over the last 30 days and overall this year is in the top 5, but Corey Knebel, along with Blake Tryon, you're able to trust in these guys. But after that, Phil Bickford is probably your next best option, along with Pursuiter Gratterall. And Gratterall has really been able to emerge since the beginning of the month of July. But I do have some question marks there. Problem is, I've got bigger question marks with Drew Smyly. I think that this recent run that he's had, it's a little bit of a fluke. I was willing to take the Dodgers at north of a $2 money line. If you're taking a look at the run line, you're finding that with the Dodgers between even money and -105. I'm going to reduce the juice, and I'm going to take that. I was willing to lay up to about a -120. I'm also going to be setting this whole 8.1 because I do think that Mr. Urias is going to be able to hold down an Atlanta team that has to go from east to west. So we're going to be going under along with the Dodgers on the run line. 961, 962 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins at the road face-off against the Detroit Tigers. Casey Mize is going to be going for the Tigres. Bailey Ober is going to be on the bump for the Twins. And the Twins find themselves road favorites anywhere between -120 and -125. Plus price on the Tigers is anywhere between +105 and +112. 9 to 9.5 is your total on the 9.5. Under is between -115 to -120. Over is anywhere between even to -105 on the 9. Over is anywhere between -115 and -130. That makes the under anywhere between -105 and +110. I think the wrong team is favored. I have the Tigers as a -140 favorite. I mean, with Bailey Ober, he has been able to emerge for this team, and he doesn't necessarily have demonstrative home and road splits, but you still take a look at it, and this is a guy that's giving up north of 2 home runs per 9 innings, his 2.5 walks per 9. That's not necessarily too bad. He's able to give you right in the neighborhood about 9.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but for Casey Mize, ever since the beginning of the month of, I would say, May, this guy's really been able to emerge. He wound up having that 5.06 ERA in the month of April. Ever since then, he has been able to do a relatively solid job. Now, he has been giving up quite a bit of hard contact recently. That is a little bit of a knock on him, as he wound up giving up 3 home runs to both the Baltimore Orioles and the Red Sox earlier this month. But in his last 2 starts, combined 9 innings against the Angels and the St. Louis Cardinals, gave up 2 runs, did not give up any home runs. So that is something that you do like to see. And with Casey Mize, when you take a look at him in Detroit, it actually has been a tad worse on the road, but relatively equal. 3.62 home ERA, 3.50 road ERA, has given up just 7 home runs at home. Meanwhile, 15 on the road. On the road, he's pitched 75 innings, more like 55 at home, but still, certainly a big split there. When you take a look at the Detroit Tigers, and you just need a little bit more offense out of Jonathan Scope. He's got 3 home runs ever since the beginning of the month of July. He, Eric Goss, along with Robbie Grossman, have between 18 and 21 home runs, so you need to get a little bit more something there, but you do have a guy in Akil Baddoo who's been able to do a solid job, hitting a 260 for the team, right around 325 on base. That's Scope's on base as well. You've got Miguel Cabrera, who's Mr. 501. He's been able to hit about a 250 for this bunch, but since the beginning of the month of June, he's been hitting more like a 270-ish, so that has been solid. You've got guys like Zach Short, Willie Castro, a couple gentlemen that they need to pick it up with regards to batting average, but by and large, you got some balance with this team. And for the Detroit Tigers, the bullpen has been much better for this team now. They did wind up using up Jose Serrano yesterday, but you've got Kyle Funkhauser who's able to give you a couple innings. Ian Krall has been relatively solid for this bunch as well. Then you take a look at the Minnesota Twins, and Ode Alcala has not been good all year long for this team. You got a guy in Ty Duffy. He's got an ERA that hovers right around 3.6. Nothing great, nothing terrible. Caleb Theobar, once again, nothing great, nothing terrible. So you got a little bit of an up and down bullpen, and with the Minnesota Twins, Josh Donaldson has been able to do a nice job for this team, hitting right around 250. He's been able to supply 20 home runs, and then you've got Ode Podlanco hitting at 275. He has been able to go deep north of 20 times so far this year. He and Miguel Sano, both between 23 and 24 home runs. But speaking of Sano, he and Dalton Simmons, Ryan Jeffers, Brent Rooker, you're able to throw in there, Jake Cave, Max Kepler, all these guys are at 225 or lower. Now, you get back Byron Buxton. He hasn't necessarily been the same since coming off the injured list, but still hitting north of a 300 for the team. Also have Luis Arias, who's hitting above a 300. Rob Snyder hitting right around at 270-ish, so got quite a few guys doing a relatively solid job there, so interesting spot here. I wound up setting, like I said, the Minnesota Twins as a sizable underdog because I do like Casey Mize in this spot. Did wind up setting this at 9.3, though. I think that both of these teams are going to be generating some runs, so going to be taking the total of 9 over, and I'm going to be riding with the Detroit Tigers with that plus price. 963, 964 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays are the biggest favorite on the board as they play host to the Baltimore Orioles. Chris Ellis is going to be going for the Orioles. Robbie Ray is on the bump for the Blue Jays. The Jays find themselves as high as minus 310, as good as a minus 275 on the money line. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Orioles, that is anywhere between a plus 245 and a plus 268. I'll just give you the run line right now since I know that that's what a lot of people are looking at. And we're between a minus 146 and a minus 160 on the Blue Jays is what you're laying on a run and a half. 9 to 9.5 is your total on the 9.5. Under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between even a minus 105 on the 9. Over is anywhere between minus 112, another funky one from Circa, to up to minus 125. The under is anywhere between minus 108 and plus 105. I wound up saying the Blue Jays as north of a $3 favorite myself on the run line. I was willing to lay up to about a minus 155, so I'm going to be looking at that Blue Jays run line. When you take a look at this Orioles team, you are able to get some offense out of this team. I will say, you've got Ryan Mountcastle, Trey Boom Mancini, and you're able to throw in there Cedric Mullins. All these guys have been able to give you north of 23 home runs so far this season, so that has been relatively solid for Mullins and Mountcastle. 24 bombs, so you do like that. And you've had a couple guys step up with regards to batting average. You've got Ramon Urias, who's sitting right around a 275-ish, and then you've got Anthony Santander, Mancini, who I was mentioning a little bit earlier, Austin, the Say's Kid. These guys are in between, I would say, about a 245 to a 260. Mountcastle ain't more like a 265, and Ori Mateo is sitting at 270, so been able to get a little bit of something there. But with this Orioles team, they are just so ghastly bad when it comes to the bullpen. Ore Lopez is now a long reliever for the team, and he's not lending any relief. Tanner Scott, one of their best bullpen pieces, wound up getting used up yesterday. Now Tyler Wells, along Cole Sulzer, these guys are relatively solid, but Sulzer wound up having a rough weekend against the Tampa Bay Rays. And take a look at Chris Ellis. What are we really going to expect out of him? He has pitched 7 innings so far this year and 8 innings for his career. He wound up getting a start against the Angels, was able to give up 3 runs in 3 innings. The team miraculously was able to come back and was able to get the W. He wound up making a long relief appearance, ironically enough, against the Baltimore Orioles earlier in the year, and he wound up giving up nothing in 4 innings. So that was great, but again, that was against the same team that he wound up pitching. And then the Robbie Ray saga has been one that has been very good for the Blue Jays, because with Robbie Ray coming into the year, he was giving up right around 4 walks per 9 innings. His command was always off. Now he's given up a bunch of homers so far this year. He's given up right around 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, but not recently. He has given up a grand total of 1 home run over his last 6 starts and has done a great job of reining it in. This is a man that has given up 2 runs or fewer in each out of his 5 starts this month, and as a matter of fact, he has given up 3 earned runs or fewer in all but 1 of his starts ever since the beginning of the month of June. So he has really been able to lock in. You take a look at what he's been able to do with regards to walks per 9 innings. That's more like a 2.5 this year, so very manageable. And for the Blue Jays, they back him up with a very good lineup. Teoscar Hernandez, Vlad Guerrero Jr., both of these guys hitting north of a 295 with Hernandez, 22 home runs. Guerrero, he's went deep 36 times, 91 RBI, that's in the top 5 in the big leagues. You've got Marcus Semien, north of 30 home runs. He's been able to give you right around 270 batting average. Bo Bichette has been able to go deep 21 times along with Randall Grichuk. With Bichette, it's more like a 285 batting average. Grichuk, more around a 245-ish, but still certainly getting the job done for the team. Then you take a look at the flip side and what you're going to be able to get out of the bullpen of the Toronto Blue Jays. And you've had some trials and tribulations with this team, not going to lie. Adam Simber, it's been a little bit up and down. Brad Hand is currently on the injured list. They aren't going to have him available, but Jordan Romano is able to give you a little bit of something. Joaquin Soria is a guy that they're hoping is going to be able to lend some good innings as well. Connor Overton has been used in a little bit of long relief, so far so good there. And I don't think it's necessarily going to come into play too much here because I think that Robbie Ray is going to give a great start. I think that Ellis is going to get absolutely destroyed. So wind up setting the total at 9.8. I'm going to be going over, and I'm going to be taking the Blue Jays on the run line. 965, 966 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays are going to be playing against the Boston Red Sox. Nick Pivetta is going to be going for the Sox. Luis Patino is on the bump for the Rays. Rays are between minus 126 and minus 140 favorites. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Sox, anywhere between plus 116 and plus 125. 8.5 to 9 is your total. On the 9, unders anywhere between, I kid you not, minus 112 to minus 130. That means that the over is anywhere between minus 108 and plus 110. Meanwhile, if you're looking at an 8.5, over is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Under is anywhere between even to minus 105. For Patino, you really got to be watching his home run road splits because this is a man that in Tampa Bay has been very good. A 2.10 ERA, 6 total appearances, 5 starts. He's given up 4 home runs over the course of 25 and 2/3 innings, so a little bit of hard contact there, but opponents are hitting a .187 off of him. On the road, that balloons to a 264, giving up 5 bombs in 26 innings, but the walks wind up ballooning as well. He has pitched pretty much the same amount of innings home to road. Home, 7 walks. Road, 14 walks, and he's got a 6.92 ERA when he's away from Tampa Bay. Meanwhile, you take a look at Pivetta, and he's actually been better on the road than he has been at home. A 5.60 home ERA, a 3.56 road ERA. In 12 starts away from Fenway, he's given up 5 home runs in 65 and 2/3 innings. In 64 and a third innings at Fenway, he's given up 15 bombs. So that is very interesting there, and you've got a Boston Red Sox team that, well, the bullpen over the last 3 days, it's in the bottom 5 with regards to ERA. Garrett Woodlock is someone that you're able to look to in this spot along with the other Kazusato Mota, but you wound up seeing Austin Davis really fail the team yesterday along with Ansel Robles. And for this Boston Red Sox bunch, how about what Rafael Devers is doing? 96 RBI, 32 home runs. He's hitting right around 275 to 280, so that has been very good for this team. You've got quite a few guys in between, I would say about a 284 to a 300. Xander Bogaerts, Alex Verdugo, Kevin Plawecki, JD Martinez, so they have all been very solid, and pretty much all these guys, aside from Plawecki, they've been able to give you a double-digit amount of homers as well. You've got a few guys like Hunter Renfroe that have been dealing with injury along with Kike Hernandez that is going to hurt a little bit, but these guys have been able to give you north of 20 home runs. They've been able to do a solid job of being able to get on base as well. Then you take a look at the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're starting to get back some of their bullpen pieces. JP Fireeisen still on the injured list, but Pete Fairbanks is back for the team. JT Chargois, who wound up coming over in that Diego Castillo deal, he has been very good for this team. And then you take a look at the offense in general, and you've got a lot of guys that have been going deep for you. Quadrant of guys with at least 22 home runs in Austin Meadows, Brandon Lau, Mike Zunino, and Nelson Cruz. And when it comes to a guy like a Brandon Lau and an Austin Meadows, both of these guys are in between a 230 and 235, but both guys north of a 320 on base as well. Randy Arozarena, 275 batting average, 350 on base. He is slashing really well, 17 home runs for him. And then you've got guys like Yandy Diaz and G-Man Choi. Both of these guys in between a 250 and 260, north of a 360 on base. This is a team that they've got some free swingers, and Nick Pivetta does a very good job of being able to get punch-outs, 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I do think that the Rays are going to be able to do a solid job of being able to put bat to ball, and I do think that Patino is going to give his best start here at home. Was willing to lay up to about a minus 145 here on the Rays, so we're going to be taking that. Also, why I'm saying this total at 9.2, because I do think that the Red Sox offense is going to come to play as well. So, going to be going with the over to go along with the Rays. 967, 968 on the betting board. You got the New York Yankees on the road face-off against the LA Angels. Good old to be determined is going to be going for the Angels as they are dealing with a lot of injuries to this entire staff. Meanwhile, for the Yankees, one Corey Kluber is going to be going for them. It's going to be really interesting to see what we get out of Corey Kluber. I was talking about this with Matt Perrault because he last pitched on May 25th, so it has been quite a while for him. I'm thinking that this is going to be probably like a 3 to 4 inning start. I think that he's going to be a little bit more than an opener. He's sort of an opener du jour, an opener deluxe, something like that. And prior to going on the injured list, he was really doing his best work, as in the month of May, he wound up having an ERA that was a 2.27 in 5 starts in that month, and giving up 2 home runs in 31 and 2/3 innings after beginning the year with a 4.15 ERA in the month of April. So he was really reining it in. Opponents hit a 2.89 off of him in his first 5 starts in the season. In his last 5, a $1.56. So that is something that I'm going to be watching out for. And for the LA Angels, I mean, it's pretty much anyone's guess as to who might be starting at this point. Dylan Bundy is on the injured list. They were looking to Reed Detmers. He wound up getting injured. They might look to maybe someone like Junior Guerra as a little bit of starters experience. I know that Jaime Barria has been making a couple starts, but he was used on Thursday, so it's pretty much anyone's guess as to what the Angels are going to be trotting out there, and the bullpen has not necessarily been great. Jake Petrika, he has got an ERA that is through the moon. You've got Jose Quintana, who's been used in long relief. He's gotten a couple starts, and it's not gone well for him so far this year. A 6.75 ERA. He has been given up right around 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 is 5. So if you wind up getting Quintana out there, I'd probably be willing to make the Yankees right around about a